We're going to wrap things up today with a special guest, a local artist here in Santa Fe who's a big part of not just the Native American art scene, but the art scene overall, and we're really excited to talk to Frank Buffalo Hyde. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
We really
Thanks
appreciate
for having
it. No, it's a pleasure. It's a real honor, actually. So you are part of Studio Central Gallery. You're a well-known artist. You work in paint, you work in sculpture, you work on paper and in media. But tell us a little bit about your background for folks who might not be familiar with your work and everything that you do.
I'm actually from Santa Fe. I was born here. I grew up here for the first 3 of my years consecutively, and then I moved to where my mother's people were from, the Onondaga Nation in central New York. And then I was back here every summer since I was 6 to visit my father. He's a sculptor here in town. And so I have a real affinity for Santa Fe, being born here, and you know, I've been around the world and I've lived in a bunch of different cities, and there's no place like Santa Fe. And the people that live here currently or have visited here, you know that to be true. My art history is basically, I have artists on both sides of my family, and that was the exact last thing I wanted to be when I grew up, because I was around it so much. I grew up, I was a gallery kid. You know, I was that kid running around while my parents were, you know, doing their thing, networking and trying to place pieces. And so I got to see a lot of the pitfalls that went along with being an artist from, you know, my father's career. And you know, thankfully he was a very humble artist. He still continues to be humble today and treats people very well, because, you know, I think that's important as an artist to, you know, remember that we all put our pants on the same way, and we're no better than anybody else. So I keep that in mind no matter what heights or success or notoriety that I get. You know, people are people, and you have to treat them very well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, people writing about your work have said that it's often a mix of traditional Native American iconography, pop culture images, anger, humor. Tell us a little bit about how your personal style evolved and what you're expressing in your work.
There's definitely a lot of humor in it. I think Native Americans traditionally, if you talk to any of them, they have a great sense of humor, and a lot of that comes from dealing with such adversity historically and contemporary as well. I mean, there's a lot of people in Indian country that still are living without water or electricity. You know, I grew up on my reservation with no running water and electricity. We chopped our own wood, and that was in the mid-'80s, and it was a big sort of shock to come out here to, you know, be with my father in the summertime and then go back to the reservation and be in those conditions. So I think a lot of that has to do with just the way that Native Americans deal with life, is through humor, and we don't separate art from our life. It's part of our life. It's not like, okay, well, this is the art portion of my day from 2 to 5, and then from 5 to 7 is my business part of it. All through the day, we're, you know, incorporating elements of art, the way we live, the way we think, the way we interact with the community. And my personal style came with, when I was visiting my father in the summertime, I would look through his Southwest art magazines, and I'd sit there and just look at every issue, look at all the artists, look at all the pictures. And I started to see that a lot of the work that was being produced was decorative, not a lot of social commentary. There's not a lot of commentary on what it was like for me to be a Native American in, you know, the 21st century or the 20th century. And that kind of stuck with me. So, you know, every summer I would come out and look at the issues, and invariably it would be the same work, the same artist, a little different color, a little different composition, but it'd all be same. So I kind of put that away in my mental file cabinet and said, you know, if I make art, when I start making art, it's going to be speaking about the contemporary existence, and it won't be stagnant, because honestly, culture isn't stagnant. Any living culture changes with the times and any innovations and processes, and so that's basically where everything came from. And now my work is definitely based on popular culture, news events, music, movies, pretty much anything that anybody else is influenced by.
Tell us a little about where people can see your work. You've got a show coming up, and then there's also Studio Central, which we'll get to in just a second.
Yeah, they can see my work. Tansy Contemporary carries my work on Canyon Road. I am Golair Fine Art in Fine Imported Shoes reveal artist for August. I have a window. I decorated the front window for the market. And then I'm a Studio Central artist, which is located at 508 Camino de la Familia in the rail yard, right behind REI. The space is a collaborative art space between Marina Skeets, Courtney Leonard, and myself. And basically it's geared towards a studio that has, you know, a little bit of an exhibition space, and anytime that we're open, people are welcome to come in and watch us work, because there's usually one of us that it's there making stuff when we're open. We're sort of approaching it as sort of taking the veil away from that sort of stigma of like art is so secretive, art is like, you know, there's so much that goes into it that people don't understand. It's, you know, it's not like that. It's basically so people can come in and ask us questions and watch us work and ask us about our process, and, you know, we just rap with them.
Very cool, very cool. How did that get started? Where did that idea kind of come from to eliminate the gap between art consumers and artists?
That's always been sort of part of one of my missions in getting into art, is sort of demystifying that, because a lot of the older generation artists are like very non-inclusive and sort of threatened by younger artists, and I've never been that way. I've always wanted to include younger artists in the conversation, and you know, honestly, when it comes down to it, painting isn't rocket science. You know, it's pigment on a two-dimensional surface, and you know, the real uniqueness of it comes from between your ears and behind your eyes. So anybody that's really turned off or threatened by other artists, you know, they have other issues, but I've always wanted to sort of let people into that process and let them know that, you know, after the work is done, it takes on a life of its own, and the viewer becomes the final collaborator with their sort of narrative.
Got you, okay. What's your message to young kids growing up in Santa Fe who are obviously have a ton of access to the arts but may not be fully engaged or may be intimidated by the idea of becoming an artist as a profession and as a calling?
I would say don't believe the hype. I mean, don't be intimidated. You can definitely carve a niche out for yourself in this town. You have to be intelligent, you have to persevere, and you know, you have to stay true to what you do and what you feel is your message, and you know, the rest of it will take care of itself. And you know, I tell younger artists and interviewers, I've showed in every hole in the wall between here and Toronto, and so that includes coffee houses, libraries. I haven't, you know, for a long time, it was hard for me to say no to exhibitions because, you know, I thought it was important for the work to be out there. But, you know, you definitely have to earn your stripes and go through those experiences. But I would tell any kid in Santa Fe that, you know, stay true and make this town really about what it's supposedly about, is art. You know, a lot of what goes on here is decorative, but if you stay true to yourself and work hard, anything's possible.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to add before we wrap things up? So you're at Tanzir Gallery on Canyon Road.
Tanzir Contemporary on Canyon, Gold Fine Imported Shoes, Studio Central. You can go to our website. We have a Studio Central website. Also a Facebook page, like us on there for updates.
And then you've got a website too, which
also,
is just your name.
My name is frankbuffalohyde.com. You can leave me a message there, or like I said, anytime you're cruising through the rail yard, you see an open sign for Studio Central, you're welcome to come on in and let's chop it up.
Yeah, I'll come down and check it out for sure, All right, thanks so much for being here, and have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Very good, thanks.
All right.